The 4 million fortune Freddie Mercury left to his ex-girlfriend, November 24, 1991, London, England. The rain fell like tears from heaven itself. Inside a gray law office on Baker Street, Mary Austin sat frozen in a leather chair. Her hands trembled. Her world was about to shatter for the second time in 1 week. Freddie Mercury was dead, and now his lawyer was reading his will. To Mary Austin, the attorney's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I leave my home, Garden Lodge, located at 1 Logan Place, Kensington. Additionally, I bequeath to her the sum of £4 million, along with 50% of all future royalties from my music catalog. Mary couldn't breathe. The other people in the room, Freddie's family, his friends, his final companion Jim Hutton, all turned to stare at her. Some with confusion, some with jealousy, all with the same burning question. Why? Why would Freddie Mercury leave his entire fortune to an ex-girlfriend he'd broken up with 15 years earlier? The newspapers would ask the same question. The tabloids would speculate. The fans would debate for decades. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew about that night in New York City. None of them knew about the secret that Freddie had carried to his grave. And Mary Austin would keep that secret locked in her heart for years to come. This is the story of what really happened. The story behind the fortune. The story that explains everything. London was alive with music, revolution, and possibility. Mary Austin was 19 years old, working at Biba, the most fashionable boutique in Kensington. She was beautiful in an understated way. Long blonde hair, kind eyes, and a quiet strength that made people feel safe around her. She'd grown up poor, very poor. Her parents were working class. Her father was a wallpaper trimmer. Her mother cleaned houses. Mary learned early that money didn't buy happiness, but the lack of it could steal your dignity. She never asked for much, just a simple life, a good man, maybe a family someday. Then one afternoon in March, a man walked into Biba who would change her life forever. His name was Freddie Mercury. Except back then, he was still Freddie Bulsara, a struggling musician with big dreams and an even bigger smile. He was performing with a band called Smile, but he had his eyes on something greater. He was looking for a scarf. "Excuse me," Freddie said, his voice already carrying that theatrical quality that would later mesmerize millions. "Do you have anything in purple?" Mary looked up from the counter. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the universe. "Purple?" Mary smiled. "That's very specific." "I'm a very specific person, darling," Freddie replied, grinning. They talked for an hour, about music, about fashion, about dreams that seemed too big for ordinary people. Before he left, Freddie asked her to dinner. Mary said yes. That dinner turned into a relationship that would last 7 years. 7 years of love, laughter, and a bond so deep that even when romance faded, the connection never would. But what Mary didn't know yet, what no one knew yet, was that Freddie was fighting a war inside himself. A war between who he was and who the world expected him to be. And that war would eventually tear them apart. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Queen was exploding. Bohemian Rhapsody had become a global phenomenon. Freddie Mercury was no longer just a musician. He was an icon. The world was at his feet. But success came with a price. Freddie and Mary were living together in a small flat in West Kensington. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. But inside those walls, something was breaking. Freddie had become distant, withdrawn. He would disappear for days on tour, and when he came home, he seemed like a stranger. One night in December, Mary confronted him. "Freddie, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice cracking. "You don't touch me anymore. You barely look at me. If you don't love me, just say it." Freddie sat on the edge of their bed, his head in his hands. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, the truth. "Mary," he whispered, "I think I'm bisexual." The room went silent. Mary felt the world tilt beneath her feet. But she didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she walked over and sat beside him. "Freddie," she said softly, "I think you're gay." He looked at her with tears in his eyes and nodded. In that moment, their romantic relationship ended. But something else began. Something deeper than romance. Something that would last forever. "You're my common-law wife," Freddie told her that night. "You're the only person who's ever truly understood me, and I will never abandon you. Never." Mary believed him, but she had no idea just how far Freddie would go to keep that promise. New York City. Queen was recording at the legendary Power Station Studios in Manhattan. The city was electric with the energy of the mid-'80s, excess, ambition, and the shadow of a new disease that no one wanted to talk about: AIDS. The word was whispered in dark corners. It was killing people in the gay community, and everyone was terrified. Freddie knew the risks. He lived his life openly now, no longer hiding who he was. But that openness came with danger in 1985. Deadly danger. Mary had flown to New York to visit him. She always did when Queen toured America. They would have dinner, talk for hours, remind each other that their bond was unbreakable. But this visit was different. It was October 17th, a Thursday night. The rain was pouring down so hard that the streets of Manhattan looked like rivers. Freddie called Mary from the studio at 11 p.m. "Meet me at the Oak Room," he said. "The Plaza Hotel. I need to talk to you." His voice sounded strange, urgent. Mary took a cab through the rain to the plaza. When she arrived, Freddie was already there, sitting alone at a corner table, staring into a glass of champagne. He looked thin, tired. "Freddie," Mary said, sliding into the seat across from him. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand. "Mary," he said quietly, "I need you to promise me something. Anything. When I die—" "Don't talk like that," Mary interrupted. "Listen to me," Freddie insisted, his grip tightening. "When I die, I need you to protect me. Protect my legacy. Protect my privacy. Don't let them turn me into a tragedy or a scandal. I need you to be the guardian of everything I've built." Mary's heart was pounding. "Why are you saying this?" Freddie leaned closer. His eyes were haunted. "Because I'm scared, Mary. I'm scared of what's coming. I'm scared that I won't have control over how my story ends. But if I know that you're there, that you're the one making the decisions, then I can die in peace." Tears were streaming down Mary's face now. "Promise me," Freddie whispered. "I promise," she said. And in that moment, in a hotel in New York City, with the rain hammering against the windows, Freddie Mercury made a decision. When he died, he would leave everything to Mary Austin. Not because she needed the money, but because she was the only person in the world he trusted completely. London. Freddie Mercury had been living with the knowledge for 2 years. He was HIV positive. He'd been tested in 1985, shortly after that night with Mary in New York. The results came back positive, and Freddie's world collapsed. But he didn't tell anyone. Not the band, not his family, not even Jim Hutton, the man he was falling in love with. The only person who knew was Mary Austin. He told her on a Sunday afternoon in April 1987. They were sitting in the garden at Garden Lodge, the mansion Freddie had bought in Kensington. It was his sanctuary, his fortress against the world. "Mary," he said, his voice barely audible, "I'm sick." She'd suspected for months. The weight loss, the exhaustion, the way he seemed to be fading before her eyes. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad," Freddie admitted. "The doctors say I might have a few years, maybe less." Mary wanted to scream, to cry, to beg God for mercy, but she didn't. Instead, she took Freddie's hand and made a promise. "I'll be here," she said, "every step of the way. You won't go through this alone." And she kept that promise. For the next 4 years, as Freddie's health deteriorated, Mary was there. She helped him manage his medical care. She protected his privacy from the vultures in the press. She made sure he could live his final years with dignity. She became more than a friend. She became his guardian angel. And Freddie never forgot it. In his will, drafted in 1989 and revised multiple times before his death, Freddie made sure that Mary would be taken care of for the rest of her life. But it wasn't just about money. It was about trust. It was about love. It was about keeping the promise he'd made in New York. November 1991. Freddie was dying. Everyone knew it now, though he'd only publicly confirmed his AIDS diagnosis on November 23rd, one day before his death. Garden Lodge had become a fortress. Security guards at the gates. Journalists camped outside with cameras. The whole world waiting for the end. Inside, Freddie was surrounded by the people he loved. Jim Hutton, his partner. Joe Finelli and Peter Freestone, his closest friends. His bandmates from Queen. And Mary Austin. Mary was there every day. She would sit by his bedside, hold his hand, and remind him that he was loved, that his music would live forever, that he wouldn't be forgotten. On November 24th, at 7 p.m., Freddie Mercury took his last breath. Mary was holding his hand when it happened. She felt his grip loosen, felt his spirit leave, and she knew that a piece of her own soul had left with him. The world mourned, but Mary's grief was private, sacred. She'd lost the most important person in her life. The fortune he left her felt meaningless compared to the emptiness she felt. 34 years have passed since Freddie Mercury died. Mary Austin still lives at Garden Lodge. She's never sold it, never left. The $4 million fortune Freddie left her, plus the ongoing royalties from Queen's music, has made her one of the wealthiest women in Britain. But she lives simply, quietly. Like she always did. People still ask her why Freddie left her everything. "Because," Mary once said in a rare interview, "I loved him when he had nothing." And he never forgot that. But there's more to it than that. Freddie left Mary his fortune because she represented something he'd searched for his entire life. Unconditional love. She loved him before the fame. She loved him when he told her the truth about who he was. She loved him when he was dying. And that kind of love can't be bought. It can only be honored. Mary Austin honored Freddie Mercury by protecting his legacy. She's refused to sell Garden Lodge to developers. She's declined hundreds of book deals and movie offers. She's kept his private life private. Just like she promised. Just like that night in New York. Today, Mary is 74 years old. She rarely speaks to the press. She lives a life of quiet dignity, surrounded by the memories of the man who loved her enough to trust her with everything. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, she walks through the rooms of Garden Lodge and remembers. She remembers Freddie's laugh, his kindness, his brilliance. She remembers the promise she made, and she knows she kept it. The $4 million fortune wasn't a payment. It was a thank you for being there when no one else was, for loving him when the world didn't understand him, for being the one person he could trust completely. Freddie Mercury once said, "You can have everything in the world, but if you don't have love, you have nothing." He left Mary Austin everything because she gave him the only thing that truly mattered: love.